McCartney from the Omaha Composite Squad Patrol, and he's also a lifetime Daedalian, and yes, we've invited him to join our local chapter, and he's going to tell us about his program, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions afterwards.
I'm going to talk from up there because I got slides, but talking about that restoration project. Every other month I go to see Bill at the hospital to try to get myself restored. It hasn't worked, believe me. But I noticed that you have about the same amount, a lot of you, same amount of gray hair and lack of it here, so I can't tell war stories. I know better. I'm getting deep kimchi by doing that. So I'm going to talk up here, tell you a little bit about this. And I'm going to focus on the Nebraska Civil Air Patrol, even though we have a unit in Iowa, one of our squadrons. I'm going to tell you about Nebraska and a little bit about the other stuff, if I can make this work. So we'll tell you our stories, and this thing goes, why doesn't this work? I'm not going to give up. I will give up there in a minute. I wish I had my computer.
I'll only get up there.
Why is that there? Oh, I got the other. I can find the button. I found the button. Okay. Tell you a little bit about the business. 4 days before my 9th birthday, the Civil Air Patrol was born. 2 days after it, we had Pearl Harbor. So the Civil Air Patrol was actually born before the Japanese attacked us. And the reason being is the Civil Air Patrol really focused on the East Coast. They had the same that Hitler had, had the threat of, I'll show you in a second. When we were flying airplanes, it looked like that. I'm not quite this old, folks. I was only 9 years old. I joined Cub Scouts. Okay? But there were women pilots. They didn't have many guys to fly airplanes. They were all flying in Europe. So there weren't many. And so the Civil Air Patrol itself is credited for sinking 2 submarines. One they actually sank. These are bombs throughout the side. That's it. Big hand grenades, if you would. Actually sank one submarine. The other destroyed it badly enough it couldn't submerge, and they got the Navy to come out and sink it the rest of the way. But we took credit for it. If you watch the paper, you'll find out that the Civil Air Patrol, just at the end of this last year, was awarded the Gold Award from the President of the United States. Starting to choke up, folks. A lot of hard work has gone into this program by a lot of people, but this honored the World War II veterans who were in the Civil Air Patrol. Not very many agencies have the Gold Award from the President of the United States. We do. Basically, it looks something like this. These numbers are back 2011 to 2013 numbers, so we'll add a little bit more. But I told you that we sank a couple submarines, I hope on purpose. So we'll do this. We work with a lot of agencies throughout the state, and I'll cover that later, so I'm not going to cover the whole thing here. However, in 1946, we became a benevolent, non-profit organization. We are a corporation. Okay? Now, we are an auxiliary of the United States Air Force, that's for sure, but by public law. This means that we work for Congress. Of course, if we want to get our money, we have to be nice to the Air Force, because the Air Force administers everything we have. They give us our airplanes, our vehicles, and the money for, they don't give us much money for pens and pencils. We volunteers do that. And everybody that you meet out here, except one lady in Nebraska, is a volunteer. Okay? Where I get my money for doing this, the pens that you have on the table, thank my wife for that. take it off my income tax, and I get 14 cents a mile off for, for doing that, but put that on my income tax form, but that's it. It's all volunteer stuff. Okay? I'm what, right now, in my Civil Air Patrol suit, looks the same as the Air Force. If I take these off, I become a retired colonel. Thanks, Bill Moses said something nice and allowed me to get promoted back when he was in the command, or else I wouldn't be here. Okay. We have, the numbers are close. The numbers are down about 1,000. For members nationwide, the number of aircraft remains steady. Now that's throughout the United States, and there are wings in every state, plus Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. So there are 52 wings. Okay. We have tons of volunteer members. Unfortunately, there are only 450 of us right now in Nebraska / northwestern Iowa. Our airplanes look like this. We have 2 Cessna 172s, for those who know airplanes, which are all of you, and the rest are 182s, glass cockpit. So our pilots are tasked, hey, you can be a 172 guy or you can be a 182 guy, but we really want you to be both. So it's like when I was flying 130s, I finally ended up with E models, but I had about 3 different models I had to learn to fly. You get in the same C-130 cockpit and think, it's not what I'm used to, even if you've been flying, okay? Like flying the D model B-52 and going to the G model B-52. Big difference. Okay. So, what we do, we have emergency services, these 3, in the airspace education. Get it right on there, or I'll be here all day. Search and rescue is 1. The Civil Air Patrol does 95% of the Air Force search and rescue missions in the continental United States. Anybody have an idea why we do it all and the Air Force doesn't do all that? Looking for lost people, the other things I'll show you later. Anybody? No ideas?
Too fast and too high.
Pardon?
Too fast and too high.
Too fast and too high is 1, but they have helicopters. Okay? Too expensive. We'll get to that later. But we're cheap, but we're good. We have saved some lives and done that. Basically, we're going to go out there, and if your aircraft is sitting out here at Offutt Air Force Base, which one of the RCs was one day when I had to take my ground team out, it had the beacon going on. But we thought it was out near Millard. No, it was on this base because maintenance had been messing around out there, and the guy left the airplane, and this airplane's on alert button, and the switch was on. Nowadays, get in our Cessnas, that won't happen because of your checklist. You have to check it out anyway and turn it off. But this was on in the middle of the night, so we got our team out. We came out, we find it, we can't get on the airplane, and they call the little captain with his vehicle, come on out, right? And he got the right people to go up there and turn that off. Why do we want to turn off the beacon? Anybody have an idea? It will confuse a real one if it goes off. Because these things, the signal goes up, right, hits the satellite, goes to the National Operations Center back in Virginia. Blue, they call Nebraska. It's in your neck of the woods, go find it. But all of this time, that signal's going up on an emergency frequency that's a real frequency, and if you did have one, that would screw things up big. So we go turn it off. We pat the people in the head and walk away. We don't chew them out, but they're embarrassed when we show up in our rescue. This is what some of our airplanes look like. People in it, they're old pilots. I don't fly anymore, folks, but you're welcome. Anybody who still does fly, or if you don't, you want to volunteer. That's why I put my pens out there. Give me a call. Homeland Security is the big deal. That's where we're focused now. We know how to find the beacons on the airplane. That's a piece of cake. I can do that with my eyes closed. Okay. However, because they're airplanes now, they have the equipment on there automatically, it's like an ADF, people remember what that is. But bingo, and you just follow, oh, there it is, down there. And then we send a ground team in to do a thing. But nowadays, we're more worried about what kind of thing the terrorists will do. The way we fight that is by taking pictures, working with FEMA, working with NEMA, Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, and a lot of other agencies. And we'll take pictures and get the pictures to those people and analyze what's happening. Give you, for example, my squadron. The pilots in my only squadron flew 100 sorties during this emergency right here that you see. Our pilots were dead. Dan Peterson was dead tired. Let me tell you this, but they did. Most of these people have another job. They aren't old like me. They're young guys, and they have another job. But their bosses let them get off to go fly these missions. If you're like me and you're too old to fly, I fly as a scanner. I'll take pictures, look, do those kind of things, and keep a log and help that from the back seat. Because I'm dangerous if I were to try to fly airplanes anymore. Okay. That's gee whiz stuff, thousands of pictures. Of course we also went to the places where you have tornadoes hit Pilger, our latest one. We go that damage assessment. So we'll take pictures. And our cameras, of course, you have to geo-rep them. You take them back, you give them to whomever needs it. It'll be really NEMA, Corps of Engineers, I don't care. Coast Guard Auxiliary, because they go up and down the river, believe it or not, stuff like that. But they use our pictures that we give to them. There's some FEMA, NEMA, Army Guard. We love the Army Guard. They let us have our wing down at Camp Ashland at their guard training facility, and they're really good to us. We are part of the state of Nebraska. There's a line number in all the laws they have that says that Civil Air Patrol is part of the Department of Aviation of Nebraska. So if you see me driving one of the vans out here, one of our vans with CAP on it, you're going to see a state license plate on there because we're part of the state of Nebraska too. They give us very little, but they do give us money and help if we need a place, usually, for training our people. Has to be trained. So not only do we have the Air Force giving that way, that's where most of our money comes from. That we did say. We don't do this right now in Nebraska. We don't have the pilot. You have to have 200 hours as a pilot in the Civil Air Patrol before you can do it, and you have to have over 2 years flying. We haven't had that kind of people, so we don't do that. But Iowa does, and people in Colorado do, and so we work with them. But our job, we can't go find these places on purpose. If we see it, we will call it in, and we'll let the state police do their thing from that point on. But we are working to have that capability back, so our pilots will actually go on that. We can't go anywhere they're going to shoot at the airplane. So we can't go right over that dark green spot in the middle of that cornfield. Well, but we can fly way over here. We know the bullet's not going to... We take pictures and give those pictures to the people that want it. DEA, we work with them. So, working with a ton of people, we have to have memorandums of understanding, that sort of thing, which we do. It's not halfway here. Digital imagery, disaster relief, that's a big deal. Think disaster relief. We have probably one of, if not the best, VHF radio network in the state of Nebraska. The state police, when they get out west, use our network. We let them use it. That's fine with us. So we have that. But we have courage. I talked to Columbus. Okay, we have a squadron there. I talked to them from my car, which had a radio in it, and I was in Nebraska City, over the Omaha repeater, one repeater that takes my signal and then sends it out that way, and vice versa. So we've got great coverage from Sioux City, Iowa, out to about, this is VHF, about halfway between Lincoln and Chadron. And then it gets iffy out there. Then we have it around Valentine, the western part. We also have, to fill in the blank, HF, high frequency radio. Those of you know M hopping, I won't get into that. That used to be my deal after I retired. Before I was flying on the glass, doing polo hat exercises, by the way. I know a little bit about that airplane. So anyway, we have great radio communications. This is why I'm in the program. Okay, it's the kids. It's 12 to 20. It's really 12 to 18. They have to join as a cadet before their 18th birthday. After that, they have to come in as a cadet flight officer. That's the only difference. So they can't be enlisted. We like them to come in at 12, 13, 14, because then we give them a booklet. They study it, they go home, and they take a test online with a book open. Duh. And they have to get 70%. Most of the work is done at home. But they learn. And so they come in, they take the test. I get that on my computer automatically at home. It says, Billy Jones passed. So I go pat him on the head. And then we go and we give him a stripe. Then we don't promote him for 2 months. The reason, he has to get that responsibility. It's called leadership, guys. And this is how. Then they get another stripe. Then they get the third stripe. And then we start assigning other younger cadets to that one. As you guys who came up through the enlisted corps understand how that works. And so we are building from the ground up a leader. That's how we do it. Okay. But after 20, then you have to be a senior member. You have to be somebody like me. Lots of luck. We get to do a lot of things. We have a color guard of our own, and we're willing to go anywhere. Offutt Composite Squadron has the best color guard in Nebraska. Hate to say that, not my squadron, but they are good. They really focus on that. So if you ever need a color guard, school, anything, parades or something, talk to Offutt, okay? Jason Johnson's their commander, or call me up, I'll get you connected. They got a really, really good. They are at national competition every year. They've gone as high as second nationally already, so they're good. Down at Camp Ashland, we can do all the fun stuff, get them at helicopter rides, the air guard and stuff like that. We will take them up to, if they have enough money when they get to be over 16 or older. We'll take them and teach them how to solo one of our Cessnas. This is a summer program. It's a 10-day long program, intensive, but we don't get them their license. We stop at the solo thing. If they want to get the license, Mommy and Daddy have to go do that some other way. We do have instructors, and they are cheaper than the normal rate. They're about, in fact, a lot of our instructors, some of them, teach right here at the Aero Club, right on the base. So we can make it easier. Plus, whenever my wife lets me, we fork out a little extra money and we end up helping them along the way. So then, unfortunately, the guy on the right, Sioux City, he's no longer with us. But our pilots were great. And I never saw a cadet, even the ones that said, I'm afraid of air, I don't want to fly. You should see the smile on their face when they get out of the airplane. You know it, you've lived it. You might have forgotten that these kids, this is a book. They just love it. And that, my job is to make them happy. Flying them in airplanes is the best thing. PT, physical training, that's part of it. Okay, we make them do that, just like we had to do in the Air Force, folks. And we make them run, and we come out to the base, and they let us use a fitness center, and we test them and all that. Moral or character development, once a month. We have a chaplain. We're the only squadron in Nebraska that has its own chaplain. But we teach moral leadership once a month to them. The Mitchell Award you see here, think of that's when they become a cadet lieutenant. So they've gone through all the enlisted ranks up to chief, and then they become a second lieutenant. That's important to these kids who later on. The scholarships are people like me, old fuddy-duddies, writing letters of recommendation for whatever scholarship they're going for, and then that's where we support them. That's the payback to them. But the second lieutenant thing is important. We'll come to that. On the left, it shows their testing. Jason Johnson took his squadron down to the firing range, and they got to fire. This is my squadron, some of my cadets getting an orientation ride on a 135. The Air Guard out of Lincoln takes us up a couple times a year, and that's a biggie too for us. Okay. Still in this. The International Air Cadet Exchange, for 10 days every year, I put up the escort in my house because I'm so old. And then we farm the cadets who are coming from overseas to us, to anybody's house who volunteers. Usually, hopefully, it's somebody who has cadets in their family so that they can talk to them. So 2 here, 2 there, that kind of thing. We get 6 in, but our cadets, once they're 17, and they can raise some money, and we help them there too, go overseas to various countries. China, not much. Well, we send them to Canada is the closest, but anywhere in Europe we send them all over the world. Japan, and they come back, talk about a big, big smile, talk about learning. That's where they get that. Our national provides about $5,000 support, so they don't pay that, so they don't have to pay the whole freight. Now, this is for enlisted guys. Sometimes we have cadets that don't want to be pilots. So therefore, they're not going to be an officer in the Air Force, right? They might go into another service. If they have been a cadet, second lieutenant, I told you, the Mitchell thing, they'll go in with 2 stripes. All services recognize that. So if they're going into basic training, they don't come in as a slick wing. They're not coming in with nothing. They're coming in with 2 stripes. And the tactical instructors recognize that, and they'll say, okay, Bobby, you have 2 stripes. You were in the Civil Air Patrol with 2 stripes. You are now a squad leader in basic training. That's a biggie, folks. For those that had to go through basic training, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's automatic, all the services. It helps to go ROTC. They can belong right now to JROTC, and all they have to do is wear a uniform like I do, and we'll put a cap patch here, and we'll put the ROTC patch over here. Not college now, we're talking high school. Okay? So they can do both, and they will promote faster in ROTC if they belong to CAP. It's in their regs. Unfortunately, we only get about, I'm going to say 2% of our cadets go into the military. But my job is to make sure that these kids who come out of high school don't go downtown Omaha and sit over a grate trying to keep warm in the winter. I want them to get a good job. I want them to go to college. And, of course, I would like to see them go into the military, hopefully as a pilot. But we have a young lad that's been accepted to all 3 academies right now, Chris Pineda. And he has some sort of a heart problem, so he's not going to be a pilot, probably. But I hope to get him in the back end if they let him. We have one of our cadets, well, actually from the Omaha off the Composite, flying in the back end of the 135 right now out of Oklahoma City. So we support all of that. One slot, the one on the bottom is only 1 slot in the whole United States. But there is a way, if they're academically not quite up to speed and aren't accepted by the Air Force Academy, there is 1 slot at the Air Force Academy's prep school. You probably don't, most of you don't even know there is a prep school for the Air Force Academy, but there is. And that's another way to get into the Air Force Academy. And we have a leg up on that. They listen to us when they say, hey, I'd like this kid to go there. And if they can't, really, we've actually sent people there. Here's why I'm here. We're trying to reach out and tell the community what we do. I go talk at middle schools mainly, junior high schools, that area, and I'll talk to the kids. It's recruiting, folks, but I want everybody to know that we work with the state police, everybody else. We're interoperable everywhere, okay? So that we like. Education is great. Now I'm not going to bore you with some of this, it's technical. But we go into the schools, and for instance, Burke High School. Leanne Vaughn is a science teacher at Burke High School. She's starting a CAP squadron. She has 29 kids. We're waiting to get the rest of the senior members because we have to get 5 or more. We got 2. We just started this. And we're going to start a whole squadron because she wants to. So, and she's into a special program we have for teachers. Okay, that's a whole nother briefing, so I won't get into that. But we're connected with an educational system that way. Grant, all of that. You can get scholarships from the Civil Air Patrol. It's nickel-diming, believe me, it's not very much. But basically, we work to get scholarships to send our cadets to cadet things, national things. The IAs I told you about, that kind of stuff. 5 free flights. And what we do, our instructors won't let them make the takeoff or landing, but they'll get up for the first flight, maybe later, but they'll take them up and then they get to stick and rudder. Okay, that makes the grin get even bigger for these kids. So we'll take 2 up, we'll fly for about an hour, land, get the other one up, swap seats, fly, and they get stick time that way. 5 times for every cadet. They get free. Civil Air Patrol pays for that. Some of our pilots and kids doing that. I told you that we have a lot of people working, but not half enough. 6 Cessna aircraft, 2 at Millard, 2 at Lincoln. They're 182 glass cockpit. 2 at Millard, 2 in Lincoln, and we have 1 at way out in Chadron and 1 at Sioux City. But the 1 at Sioux City goes down to Columbus, and we move them around depending on usage. And our pilots, if they're out at Chadron, we have to keep them current. If you become a pilot, on your nickel, you might have to become current. If the weather's bad in the winter and we can't fly our Cessnas, we still ask you to maintain currency. So it's not 100% free, it's part of your donation. So we have more units coming up. I told you about how much does it cost? Add 10% to all these figures. These are old figures. But I said it's cheaper. We cost about $135 dry for our airplane, to operate our airplane. $135 an hour. So if the National Resource District wants us to fly for them up and down the flood waters or wherever, fly up and down the Platte River to see where the ice is so they can dump coal dust on it or drop dynamite and dynamite. We fly them. That's where they get their information, where it's needed. They'll call us, happens to be in the same building where our squadron is, those people, but we do that. So we charge $135 an hour. We fly at 130, which is closer to $5,000 an hour now. Too high, too fast? Yeah. But they have a lot of equipment stuff that we don't. But way more expensive. Now you can see why we do 95% of the search and rescue stuff for the Air Force. Add 2 units. We have one down in Beatrice and we have one way out here on the border for Wyoming. You can call the National Operations Center, number on the left, or you can call the wing, which is down in Camp Ashland. My recommendation is go into your telephone book in Bellevue and look up Colonel Robert R. McCartney, or just call me, keep your pen, look me up, Google me, whatever you want to do, find me, and I'll get you to the right person. Because we don't go on a mission unless the National Operations Center gives us a mission number. And that's because of liability, folks. So we won't take our cadets into harm's way. We might go in near a crash site, but our cadets, if we have cadets, are going to do perimeter guard, and that's it. They can't stop you, but they can stand there in their BDUs and say, stop, you're not allowed in here. Most people, okay, he's in uniform, and they go away, even though they're kids. But we don't take them in. Only adults will we take in to see the body parts and that kind of stuff. So we don't put our cadets in any kind of harm, mental or other way. It's our charge. And, by the way, every one of us that works for CAP is cleared under the Cadet Protection Program. It's a Boy Scout program, but we have adopted it. And that means, in essence, when I get this little boy right here, I can't go one-on-one with him. I have to have another adult with me at all times. And 100% of our leaders are that way. We don't ever go one-on-one with a cadet. Boy or girl, doesn't matter. Now, the rules are, when we go down to Tarkio, which I'm going to say you ought to go down and see that air show, because we're not going to have one out here. You better watch for that in July. That's one of the best air shows I've ever seen. Those civilian pilots know what they're doing down there. And it's a ball, especially at night when they light up the cowling and the T6s and stuff, and in the smoke and stuff they do. Amazing. My squadron goes down and supports that, and the reason they do that, they get free flights in these old-time aircraft, T6s, you name it. Well, basically, that's the briefing, folks. I sort of do that, and then I can make it do that. Okay. Now I'm open to questions.